Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Amphidator. This formidable water beast has a traditional yet infallible hunting technique. He segregates a lethal venom and waits for it to act. For a long time scientists tried to find an antidote, but now they have ultimately given up. And so Amphidator is one of the newest and latest water legendary monsters. I gotta say, I love this monster design, absolutely love it, it's so darn great. And with that said, let me just emphasize that I am recording this video before this monster is officially released, and so it's very possible that the stats, the skills, the cooldowns, something on this monster may be changed by the time it's officially released. So take everything in this video with a grain of salt. And with that being said, let's jump into the analysis. This monster boasts a power of 3,476 in the water category, which currently, out of 32 water legendary monsters, puts him tied for 5th place along with monsters like Frostbite, Brynhilda, Blob, and Hydrotilla the Icebringer. As for his life, he has 29,556, which puts him tied in 8th place with Kihaku. And lastly, he has a speed of 3,432, which makes him tied for 13th place along with monsters like Sphyrnus and H2O Delirious. And aside from that, I just need to emphasize that the speed stat, even though it's tied for 13th place, the speed stat itself is in 6th place, at least in the water category. And so in a nutshell, I would say all of his skills are definitely above average, with his power of 3476 being way above average. And so really quickly, let me just skip to the combat roll. According to Monster Wiki, this monster is an attacker, and that is definitely the case with a monster with this power. As for his trait, he has Hardened, meaning all status effects have a 20% less accuracy against this monster, which is in my opinion the best trait to have for an ordinary monster. And then as for his book, this monster is in the Sea book, and I don't know, for some reason, I may be completely crazy here, but I also feel like he should end up being in the Dragon book. And I know he doesn't really look much of a dragon or anything, but I mean, there's other monsters that are in the Dragon book that aren't dragons, and I kind of feel like this monster has that dragon vibe. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. With that being said, as for his slots, he can hold an armor relic and a trap relic. And the fact that this attacker can hold an armor relic is pretty good, because he can take advantage of the armor of duty. When the turn starts, he'll gain X amount of points of armor, or even the heavy duty armor, which after being hit, he'll gain X amount of armor, which by the way has 2 uses. Or if you're fortunate enough to have a Tomb's armor, then at the start of the battle, you're going to gain a lot of armor. And so this water attacker might be quite difficult to take down, or if you're using him for offense, he can definitely take a lot of hits. But as for being able to hold a trap relic, well, there's so many things you can take advantage of. You can remove stamina from the enemy's team, you can try to manipulate their speed if you want to, or of course you can run the pestilence trap, which will reduce the enemy's maximum HP by X amount of points depending on the level for 2 turns, which definitely seems more fitting for this attacker. With that said, let's talk about his skills. His ultimate attack is called Poison Net, deals massive water damage to all enemies, applies stun and daze to all enemies. 70 water based damage, that's pretty powerful. On top of that, it also stuns, and on top of that, it also dazes. I have nothing to complain, I like this ultimate on this attacker. Skills group 1 in my opinion doesn't really have anything worth mentioning, but I'm still going to go ahead and mention long distance migration, which applies stamina regeneration to itself. And the only reason I want to mention this is because it costs no stamina and has no cooldown, and whenever a monster has a skill like this, I just think it's worth mentioning for someone that may have skipped it. Because a skill like this that has both no cooldown and no stamina cost, it means you can use it whenever you want. If you're out of stamina, instead of recharging, just give yourself stamina regeneration. Or of course, if you get hit with cooldowns activated, once again, instead of just recharging, you might as well just give yourself stamina regeneration, which will recover 28 points of stamina for the next 3 turns. And the reason this is actually super important on this monster is because, as you can see, all of his skills, 25, 22, 25, 0, 27, 27, all of his skills are less than 28 stamina. So just by using long distance migration, you're always going to give yourself enough stamina to do an attack on the following turn. So don't count this skill out, you might want to consider actually running it. Let's move on. Skills group 2, we have Spores Injection, deals heavy special damage to one enemy, applies poison to one enemy. 50 damage, 25 stamina, no cooldown, and you poison the enemy monster. Poison will reduce the enemy's HP by 10% for the next 4 turns, and it also reduces their damage output. Let's move on to Open Vein, deals heavy water damage to an enemy, applies bleeding. So a very similar skill, 50 damage, 25 stamina, no cooldown, but this time it applies bleeding, which will reduce enemy HP by 15% for the next 3 turns, and it'll also reduce their damage output. So Spores Injection, you have a special based version that deals 50 damage, Open Vein, you have a water based version that deals 50 damage, Open Vein will do bleeding, Spores Injection will do poison, and between the two, it pretty much goes to player preference. Do you prefer a water skill that has elemental advantage against fire monsters, but against other water monsters is going to deal 50% less damage? Or would you prefer to have just a special based attack that regardless of what monster, there's no elemental advantage, there's no elemental disadvantage, but then you also have to consider the torture status effect. Are you someone that prefers poison, or are you someone that prefers bleeding? Because as much as there are monsters that are immune to poison, I would say Now in the game, there's way more monsters that are immune to bleeding, so if you're deciding between any of these two skills, that's pretty much going to be up to you. For the last skill, we have Tainted Spores, deals moderate water damage to an enemy, applies poison and bleeding. And for those of you that can't decide between the poison or the bleeding, they made a skill that just gives both. However, this skill only deals 40 damage and it's water based. It costs 22 stamina and it has a 1 turn cooldown. Moving on to skills group 3, we have Mating Shout, applies stamina regeneration, damage boost, and precision to itself, requires cooldown. So this skill is a self skill that costs no stamina, however it has a 3 turn cooldown. So you might be thinking this is way better than skills group 1, and perhaps, right, because this monster is an attacker, and this skill does give him a damage boost that lasts for 3 turns and increased accuracy. And you always want your attacker to have a damage boost and increased accuracy. Now, as much as I would have loved for this monster to give himself double damage instead of a damage boost, the fact that he does give himself damage boost allows for synergy with a support monster that can give him the double damage. But anyhow, the biggest drawback to this skill is that 3 turn cooldown. Like I said, skills group 1, you can use this whenever you want. Long distance migration, it doesn't matter. The fact that it has no cooldown, you can always use it. Mating Shout, if you were to get hit with cooldowns activated, well then you wouldn't be able to use it. However, from skill group 2, you still have other 0 cooldown skills that you could utilize. So again, there's no need to run long distance migration. That's why I said there wasn't really anything worth talking about in skills group 1. However, I still wanted to bring it up because someone may disagree. Especially when we talk about Infected Spores Blow, which deals moderate water damage to all enemies, applies poison and bleeding to all enemies, requires cooldown, 40 damage, 27 stamina cost, water based, 2 turn cooldown. And so you're probably wondering, why would you even want to run Tainted Spores, which essentially does the same thing as Infected Spores Blow? And you know what, I would agree with you. They do the exact same thing. The only difference is one is a single enemy target skill and the other one is an AoE. It targets everyone. But yeah, they're both water based, they both deal 40 damage, they both do poison and bleeding. So definitely be sure to run Infected Spores Blow over Tainted Spores. And then for the last skill, we have Poison Splash, which deals heavy water damage to all enemies and it applies poison to all enemies. 45 damage, water based, 27 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, and again AoE poison. And so overall, just looking at this monster's skills, I'm gonna say I'm not the biggest fan of the monster. I love the monster design, but the skill set, just not the biggest fan, and that's primarily because it relies on him doing back-to-back AoEs. Infected Spores Blows, you're gonna want to start off with that skill, and then Poison Splash. And that's essentially going to be your go-to combo for the first part. What I do really love about Infected Spores Blows is just that combination of Poison and Bleed is amazing. The enemy loses a lot of HP, 25% of their HP for the next 3 turns, and then on the last turn an extra 10%. But by the 3rd or the 4th turn, the enemy monster is probably already dead. But while they have poison and bleeding, their damage output is also reduced. So that's really great. But overall, and many of you already know this about me, I'm not the biggest fan of relying on 2 multiple enemies attack just because of that 90% accuracy. You're bound to miss 1 or 2 of the enemy monsters, especially when you have to rely on both of them. Now, if you run this monster with a support monster that can give you increased accuracy, that's not a problem. Of course, he has access to Mating Shout himself, which grants him increased accuracy and a damage boost and stamina regen. But then that's the other thing, I don't like setup skills. I like to take out one enemy monster and then make it a 3 against 2 battle, or do something that ensures me victory. So for example, if Mating Shout was a double damage boost instead of a damage boost, then I would have liked it a lot more. Granted, I did say this allows for synergy with a support monster, but then that requires you to have a support monster, which you can definitely do in many team combinations. So he's certainly not bad by any means. He's just a typical attacker. Well, not really your typical attacker, because most attackers do have a really strong single target attack, whereas the most this monster has of 50 damage. Now the advantage it does have is that it has no cooldown. So again, if you do get hit with cooldowns activated, you at least have a skill you can use. But overall, when it comes to skills, I'm really just not the biggest fan. I do like Infected a lot, but I feel like he's missing that special based AoE. That way, if you take him on against, keep in mind he's in the C book, so if you take him on against other water monsters, well, the skill's not going to be as effective. So I feel like he's missing that special based AoE, and then I also feel like he's missing a strong 70 damage or even 65 damage skill. But it is what it is. For this monster, I would run Infected Spores Blow, Poison Splash, and then I would also run Spores Injection to have a special based attack. And for the last skill, it would probably be Mating Shout. But then the more I talked about long distance migration, I kind of like it. I kind of really like it. Considering once again the stamina regen, that'll allow you to recover 28 stamina for the next 3 turns, which is enough to do your Infected Spores or your Poison Splash, or of course your Spores Injection. So I don't know, I'm also kind of liking that. But of course, if you don't like the skills group 1, then Mating Shout is the more go-to skill. It's not going to cost you any stamina, it'll give you damage boost and an increased accuracy, which will allow you to set up for your other 3 skills. And with that being said, that is going to conclude the analysis on Amphidator. Please let me know what you guys think about this analysis, this video, and more importantly, let me know what you think about this monster. Do you like him or do you dislike him? What do you think of his skills? What do you think of his stats? Do you think he has what it takes to be a good water attacker? Or unfortunately, do you think there are other better water attackers out there in the game? Please give me your thoughts in the comments below. Look forward to reading them, and I will see you all next time.